Welcome. I want to talk about another of my latest articles. This one was on American Thinker because it's really something that draws national attention when a local authority like the Essex Parks and Recreation Department and the Essex Westford School Board here in Essex, Vermont, do things that are so quite outrageous. So in this case, a student, well, let's start back. So the Essex School Board was considering implementing critical race theory curricula, which they say isn't, but it is. We'll come back to that. And one of the students named Alex Katznelson, make sure I pronounce it correctly, he appeared at this hearing at the invitation of others as a student to attest to what was actually being taught and his objections to it as a high school student. So he was then fired as a lifeguard with the Essex Parks and Recreation Department, who said that because of his public comments, he had to lose his job. Nothing to do with his qualifications as a lifeguard. All indications are that he's very good at that. There's been no pretense that he's not a good lifeguard. So what they wrote to him in his termination letter was this: while all of your comments are concerning, several of the comments you made publicly stand out. The first being, the residents of Essex and Westford will not stand idly by as anti-whiteness invades our school system. Later they said the first comment mentioned above could be taken as a threat against the school and or our community. It is aggressive and threatening in nature while also being vague enough to elicit fear. These are not constitutional standards for government to be using to silence a young person's speech. It's very valuable political speech particularly, and this is way out of line of any kind of constitutional power. You want to talk about vague? Talk about what they're saying in some of these letters. They then say, the second being that you said, what you people plan to do is redistribute opportunity based solely on individual identity. They said later in the letter, the second comment mentioned above uses an offensive phrase, you people, while also being very vague and intimidating in nature. Then they said the third comment, this is why we have fifth graders coming home and saying they wish they were black. According to the Department of Parks and Recreation, who I didn't know was really party to the school curricular program, says the third comment, along with the rest of the public comments we have referenced, shows that you do not possess and that you cannot uphold the village core beliefs and values around racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. Diversity and inclusion do not include any mention of anything other than what they say. So here's their core belief. Live the golden rule in every interaction by demonstrating a deep regard for the diversity, needs, feelings, and beliefs of all people and acknowledging the ideas and opinions of everyone. Well, Alex is acknowledging the ideas of the United States Constitution and Martin Luther King. That's too radical for them. So they go on to say that he's unfit to be a lifeguard because of his vague comments threatening them because he said, you people. And let me say, you people are nuts, okay? Because what you've put into your curricula from Rajani Edens, the poet, is some of the most toxic vitriol I've ever read. It's anti-racist hate and fantasizing about killing people en masse. There's nothing loving about it. But you people put it in the school curriculum, and now you people will be talking about it. But you people at the Parks and Recreation Department wrote this to this high school student. We have made the determination that your public comments cause legitimate concern around your ability to equitably look out for the safety of everyone who attends our pools. In addition, we feel that your public comments are likely to cause future disruption with our residents. Your comments, we're talking about free speech here, right? Your comments made in another forum that was politically about free speech and critical race theory have already begun to cause disruption amongst your peers who have seen them. Your position by its very nature requires a degree of public trust that they have not often found in other instances of public employment because, you know, lifeguards are special. We cannot create an unsafe environment at our pool, nor can we create a situation where any of our residents feel unsafe or unwelcome at our pool. So he's fired. And when the school board then adopted critical race theory just a couple nights ago, one school board member decided to say this. His name is Brendan Kinney. And he had an impassioned statement, said he's been doing this for 13 years. This is why we're here, because of people like him, like you people. He thanked those who opposed the equity policy for helping him to think more deeply about the district's equity work. And then he said, he called out a small subset of people, this would include Alex the lifeguard, I'm sure, opposed to the district's equity work, who he said were part of a national, political, and partisan movement with the ultimate goal of undermining the institution of public education. To this group, I have a different message, he said. Shame on you. Shame on you for using the children of our community for pawns in your culture war. Historically, the work of school boards has been apolitical, yet in recent months, we've seen partisan tactics being used to promote a political agenda, Kinney continued. They spread misinformation, they take and twist comments out of context, they use false equivalents in making their arguments, and they deploy scare tactics to confuse parents and taxpayers. In addition to the decision the board had to make about the equity policy, Kinney said, the Essex Westford community has a more critical decision to make going forward. Will we face off as enemies, or will we move forward together as neighbors, he asked. I know my choice. Mr. Kinney has shown his choice that he's an enemy. He's an enemy of the First Amendment. He's the enemy of a student having an opinion because he has hammered these people. Shame on you, Mr. Kinney. Shame, oh shame, because you're the partisans who brought this in. And you don't want people to look at it. And you can't tolerate it because when it's dragged out in the light, it's a horrible, horrible thing. Let's talk about the vitriol in Rajni Edin's poetry. Because what you just said there in a public comment before the vote to shame people into voting into your ideology, your personal, political, gonna save the black man ideology that a lot of people don't agree with, that Martin Luther King would not agree with, you've reversed Martin Luther King. You want to judge people by the color of their skin, regardless of their merit or what they do. And we take exception. Alex takes exception. The United States Constitution takes exception. Because you're a bully. And your remarks and what Rajni Edin says about white people, who's not even from Vermont, these horrible urban classifications, and every police shooting is a lynching and all this, that you're teaching our children. And you have the nerve to stand up here and with your hypocrisy and your toxicity, reflect the blend of critical race theory and what our kids are being taught. I asked Vermonters to look at the poetry book of Rajni Edin's. Their names are mine. Not of Barack Obama, not successful black Americans, but all of those who are in urban, we're told, are the ones that are the sole measurement of what the black experience is in America. And that's not true. Nor is Vermont's history solely measured by its wrongs and without regard to its rights. So we will continue to have opinions despite this kind of tyranny. And these are the same people who will claim that white silence is violence, but they viciously slander anybody, dox people. You have no idea what's going on in Vermont to anybody like Alex who dares stand up to these bullies. And this is not acceptable. This is not tolerant. It's not inclusive. It's not diversity. It's not the golden rule. It's not respecting the opinions of others. And it is taking Martin Luther King and his legacy and our Constitution and trampling them right publicly in front of us. Thank you for that. Mr. Brandon, whatever your name is. Please, Vermont parents, look for yourselves. Look at this poetry. Look at it's poetry. It's vitriolic hate. Okay? And look what else is being taught in your schools by these people who say that we are politicizing it if we ask to restore the liberal core values of the Supreme Court of free speech and of the 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act and the Bakke decision, all of which are being cast aside by these people in the name of an ideological agenda, and then they shame anybody, even a high school student who's part of this curricula, for daring to take exception. This is intolerable. It is illegal. And these are public officials, and they need to step down. You need to step down because you don't even know what you're doing. What you're doing is wrong. You're drowning our children while firing the Lifeguard. Vermonters, get involved. Nothing is sweeter than Vermont liberty. And people like this are out to take away liberty in the name of freeing everybody. And there is a really obvious evidence that they are not freeing anybody except giving themselves more power and a little ego stroking. So we've had enough. Thank you for the beautiful place of Vermont. This is where we live. Vermont's liberty is not free. Please join us, vtliberty.net. Thank you.